Thank you, Eric, and thanks to ETC for having us. My name is, we'll do some quick intros. My name is Lisa Gerber. I'm the Director of M&E at PacketFabric. For those of you who don't know, PacketFabric is a NAS, a network as a service. So it is a extremely high bandwidth, on-demand, private, end-to-end network. So for virtual production, we're able to provide those productions with that connectivity for any stage that is a PacketFabric connected stage. So that's me. And I'm based in Los Angeles, and I have a dog.
Are we going to tell people what we do for fun, too? Hi, everybody. My name is Matt Herson. I am a senior solution architect leader. Geez, what am I now? For content production, supply chain, and virtual production here at AWS. Based out of Los Angeles, I have a dog as well, and he's cute and jumps.
Hi. My name is Thudiyanplackal. I'm a virtual production producer and a senior M&E executive. I was on a project with ETC called Fathead, which was a short film where we were able to push the boundaries on various pipeline integrations for virtual production, and had wonderful partners, some of which we'll talk about here today. Thank you.
So the reason I brought us together was because I thought of you two. In 2019, I don't know if anyone else has read this, but the Movie Labs 2030 Vision paper. Anybody? Okay, we have one guy who also may have written it. And it stated that by 2030, all of production would be fully in the cloud. And so when I was faced with the opportunity to be at PacketFabric, I was really intrigued by this concept of data mobility and how if everything is in fact moving to the cloud, and we have so many different companies, vendors, workflows, like the group before, the AWS group before was saying, how does it all connect smoothly, economically, and actually work? So, so to kick things off, I guess, Tom, I'd love to start with you. Since you're creative, boots on the ground, how are you, from sets, how are you seeing actually that 2030 vision 3 years later? Because I'm seeing it, connectivity is being brought to bear at these stages in a totally new way. They're rethinking infrastructure. What are you experiencing 3 years later after that?
Cool. Because with virtual production, a lot of the work happens in pre-production. We call it fix it in pre. We start very early, and the idea that we begin to work with remote teams all over the world. We had folks in London and Greece, all over America. And so it was very essential for us to have services that were already placed in the cloud, things like Fifth Kind for asset review and asset management, working in Perforce, because we were basically working on the same projects with an Unreal Engine, and we didn't have to kind of push the project all over again each time there was some changes. There was version control that allowed us to touch only those things that were recently shifted by pulling those down and making it recent. So we became very well versed with this idea of a workflow that was situated in this connected world in the virtual space. And so by the time we came onto the set, we were all in flow with it. We already had, and we were shooting in the middle of COVID with so many restrictions, which really wouldn't have been possible without this infrastructure behind it. So we were able to keep a low head count on set, but still have the advantage of having everyone else on call anywhere in the world to interact with what the director needed on set.
Matt, your thoughts?
So the Movie Labs vision really changed the idea of what you're going to do with your data as soon as it's created, right? We're shooting on cameras right now. We're creating media assets, and we need to be able to move them rapidly. Great, we're writing it to local disk. Do I want to grab that disk and drive it 20 miles down the street? Do I want to ship it across the world? That's a lot of work. It's a lot of time. Connectivity has infinitely exploded. Localizing all your data, moving it quickly directly from set or adjoining areas, via PacketFabric or whoever, being able to move that data and make it usable changes the way you're going to start processing your creative idea. Instead of having to wait for an immediate or having your editor be in Los Angeles and you're shooting in Greece, what about if they're able to access that media, do a scratch edit on that scene, and be able to send that back to set and say, hey, something's wrong. Something wasn't captured right. I mean, Tom, in your opinion, where has really the virtual wall change that as far as, immediate or kind of that idea of quick access?
Yeah. So on Fathead itself, if we were to give an example, Dane Brem from Syndigrel was the production technologist, and he had his whole team manage the DIT section. And so we were able to take camera raw directly from ARRI mini LF cameras. These were 4.5 open gate. Push them directly to the cloud on the fly, create proxies on the FSX, and then an editor was able to attend to those dailies, edited before we wrapped, before we finished for the day. They could give us notes saying, hey, go ahead and take these things for coverage, because we were shooting with a very large team and a lot of kids in the crew, in the cast. So it was very difficult to bring them back to get these shots. And so getting those notes every day in the evening was very essential. We were able to save a ton of time, as Dane quoted it. It was going to be at least anywhere between 24 to 48 hours of running media around town to get dailies to view. And over here, we had everything in 40 hours for everyone to view, with a layer of LUT applied to it and all that kind of stuff.
So I might say, Lisa, I'm going to pass it to you to really ask. Studios are being built today. They're being built everywhere and anywhere. What do you think their path to success is in order to be able to get this media rapidly moving?
Be orbital. No, so I jest, but it's true. There are studios, certain studios that we look at that are a little bit further down the road as far as the learning curve, right? And they're valuing from the word go, we want to be a stage that is thought of as putting education forward and infrastructure forward and best practices. So Orbital is a really good example. He can't hear me because he's talking, but Christopher Cope, I'm talking about you. Still can't hear me. And really putting an emphasis on that education aspect and the infrastructure. And they have their own data center on stage where they will be able to have this type of connectivity. So I think the future of it is, as we start to sort of, and we think about this, I mean, as PacketFabric, we think about, does the stage have what it needs? I mean, we're not sitting there judging everybody harshly, but we do have to really look at, does the stage have what it needs in order to do this? And I think we're going to start to see that the answer, as they're being built with that in mind, sort of almost infrastructure native or connected stage native, that we'll see more of that.
Yeah, and there's also the concept of the micro studios, which is very important to know, that infrastructure is not readily available at that stage when you're trying to investigate a certain concept and you want to work with a small group of folks, like-minded folks around the world, to pitch in and build those concepts up. And so at a time like that, it's so easy for them to just plug into a larger system and just use what they need, but at the same time have the ability to scale to any level of operation and only pay for whatever you end up using without having to sit with anything that you've plunked all your money and it's just sitting there. And I've heard from folks in the business who are friends of mine, VFX supervisors who had switched over to cloud, who said through the pandemic, had they not done that, had they already put all their money down into building large infrastructure and sit on it, they'd have to compromise between paying off on what they put down and let go of good people. In this case, they were able to hold on to their people, which was their more valuable resource. And so there are all these ideas coming up as well.
That kind of brings up a thought I have too, just about the cloud in general and also the connected stage in general. I can use this one. As we reevaluate the personnel that is prepared to not only use this type of connectivity but resell it to the productions that are on stage, how does that change the managed service of it all? I mean, having the IT professionals on site, and ours is an on-demand, easy-to-use portal, but you still want to be able to resell and do it on a dime, because that's the whole point of it. Does that complement the AWS workflow, and do you have that as well, and do you have that in mind with these productions?
Yeah, for the micro studios of the world and the new studios that are being built, connectivity is a real concern. They need to be able to get online, high-speed internet, And it could be a direct connect directly to AWS, it could be out to the internet, it could be anywhere depending on what they want to do. The key component around this though is it's not all one company. No one company says, we're making a movie and we have everyone, we're going to hire everyone and operate. There's a lot of different companies and third parties that are all involved that all need to contribute to the same path. So I'd almost say that WAN-based connectivity is most important, especially from stage. But even then, within the cloud, Tom, you touched on this a bit, and even our friends at Blackmagic touched on this a bit, especially in the ETC Fathead project, where we're saying, okay, great, we've already uploaded our data to the cloud. Now we need to do our edit, and we need to do our grade. Great, we had Resolve. We had it running on a AWS EC2 instance, our G5 instance, and be able to do that edit. Now we're going to start leveraging built-in technologies to say, okay, great, let's do a color grade. We're going to use the NVIDIA card that's in the cloud and on premises and stream that back. And guess what? I can do that on set. I can do it right there with a thin client. So now I'm starting to have collaboration with multiple companies. I have my internet connectivity, I have my access patterns, but moreover, you're not really being restricted by the technology. You can be creative in wherever you are. It's a really long-winded way of saying, I think that it is a perpetual motion of connectivity that needs to keep moving forward, and it's not going to really change. I think the difference is that as we move away from major metropolitans, I would hope the internet speeds and availability will continue to grow, and great partners like yourself can help enable that activity.
And I would also, and we just touched on this, over there, the difference between the public internet and the egress with all of that kind of back and forth motion versus a private network can be significant.
Yeah, it can, right? You're moving data around. The key to that is data gravity. Loading your data up, all you're streaming back is going to be your remote session, your nice DCV, your Teradici, your Parsec, whatever that is. And that's lightweight compared to your OCF. Your OCF, you're in gigabytes, terabytes. Your streaming session, 20 megabits per second, that's okay, because I don't have to pull 500 terabytes back of all my data. I can actually do that work there and then just work for our final delivery element.
How are we on time? Good?
Cool.
Just keep talking. Tell you the story of my life. So we talked about collaboration. Let's talk about that. Actually, let's talk about the major use cases that stand out to you as far as, and then I want to talk about popping stages. But the use cases to you that most benefit from, the ability to scale up to 100 gigs securely and do it quickly. We talked about camera to cloud, but you're making a movie and you have that capability only for one workflow or one use case. What's your thought on that?
Well, when it comes to something like the VAD department, which is the virtual art department thing, that's where we've got the bulk of the heavy content, really. And sometimes you do have one set of vendors who you need to work with to get the initial stage done, like of getting the environment assets and whatnot. And then you probably have another vendor, as we had on our project with Happy Mushroom, who came in 3 weeks before shoot date and up-resed everything and created Final Pixel for us. And then so suddenly we had to move a lot of content from 3 other vendors to Happy Mushroom, and then Happy Mushroom to push those over to the stage, because the stage had their own independent team that had to go over it, review it, run it onto the wall, take notes from the director, and then make corrections on it. So this all happened just within the first 3 weeks of the year, coming out of the holidays, and it wouldn't have happened if there wasn't this high bandwidth connectivity at the stage. And I don't have the exact numbers. It's like, yeah, it's a lot. So anyway, without that, we would have been in a lot of fix. So that was really the use case, I think. If our life depended on it, that's what saved us at that last moment.
Can we put that slide up really quick? Is it not? Yeah, so this is what it looks like in a very basic sense. So we don't pop every stage, which is to say that we don't necessarily put our gear on site for every single stage. We don't need to, but if a stage does have more than one stage, or they want the ability to scale for multiple stages, we will. There's the stage. It's a box there on the left. And I drew that for you. And that is connected to whatever nearest data center is the closest. and through an access line, which is dark fiber, and then you're on our network, then you're in the cloud, and the teams that are working in the AWS cloud have access and therefore have access to the work being done on the stage. So I just thought I would walk you through that image.
One thing to index on is security, right?
Yes.
Secure connections the whole step of the way. Privatized connections, encryption in flight, at rest. That's all things that we can inherently do, especially with this privatized connection or these uniform paths.
Right, and the difference is it's not a tunnel, it's not a VPN, it's a private connection. So, it's not an add-on. It's a fully private, it's not the public internet. That's something I really had to wrap my head around when I started there, is people would say, well, what technology do you work for? And I would say, the internet, it's not that thing. So it's something entirely different. It's a private internet of its own. So, yeah. Any last thoughts?
Well, as with anything, especially in technology, we're always versioning, we're always iterating and improving and taking and learning from each other how we can make things better. So I think in this virtual production pipeline experience, one of the things is traditional filmmakers are getting more acquainted with where does it really come into our world of telling stories and interpreting ideas and things like that. My personal experience is once you get a hang of it, it really opens up the window of possibilities. But there's that initial growth stage where there's some pain involved, but we have to stick through it. And also, I think the technology partners are also participating to learn where those pain points are and making most of their effort to create innovations and user experience and ease of use. And in the next 2-3 years, I really think it's going to be a way of operating in storytelling. It's not going to be like, oh, we may do this in virtual production. It's going to be a part of pretty much how we do things.
Ubiquitous, yeah.
Oh, my thoughts. Are you sure you want them?
Yes.
No. So I always, when I first started in film production and even set work as well as post-production, I always thought I was bound to the technology. I was really obsessed with, this is the technology we work with and this is how we work. Moving past that to say what is the goal, the outcome, and how to drive past it, really getting to that end point of what it is, abstract that technology and really think how you can get there in the most positive light, most creative way, the most unblocked way. And the gaps that exist today will be quickly filled tomorrow. Whether it's a tool that you make, a tool that you create, a tool that you find, just be prepared to be dynamic by nature.
I agree with everything both of you said, and I would add, I think it is moving in an invisible direction. I think the more kind of seamless and invisible these tools can become, and work their way into our muscle memory is what's starting to happen and what I hope to have happen with the Connected Stage program. So thanks all for listening, and I hope to meet some of you afterwards, and thanks for having us, ETC. Thanks for letting me work the camera.